La parola all'onorevole Legutko.
Mr. President, it was a very interesting speech. I expected it would be more of a summing up speech, and I was just wondering what will be the proportion between pluses and minuses. Of course, on the plus side, I would put the Juncker plan, which you mentioned en passant, but I think which was, has been a success. But there is also a minus side to it. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is of course, immigration and the demographic crisis. Of course, you did not do it directly. It was Chancellor Merkel who opened the European borders, but you could have prevented her, at least try to prevent her. I don't know with what effect, but at least you could have. Now, we can, of course, subscribe to the idea of strengthening European borders, but I think it's a somewhat belated proposal. I mean, we could have talked about it some time ago. Instead, we spent a couple of years on imposing the solution that was absurd from the very beginning, the mandatory relocation. And there was a lot of energy spent on it, a lot of bad blood was shed, and the typical share of bullying and invectives were thrown around. So, but the real question is that you should ask yourself, and we all should ask ourselves, is the European Union in a better shape now than it was when you took office? And I think the answer is clear. No. With all due respect, President Juncker, and all the successes that you had, no. There has never been a time in the history of European integration where Europe was more disunited than it is now. You talked about unity. No, the unity is no longer there. It doesn't mean World War I or World War II. Until recently, integration was one-way street. Now it's two-way street. The number of people who are dissatisfied, deeply dissatisfied with the European project is increasing. That's why our colleagues, my colleagues too, are somewhat nervous before the elections, because they do not know what will happen. They are afraid of a possible political earthquake. And you cannot say that the European Commission has no share in it and no responsibility. There is at least political responsibility. I mean, come on, there is some relation between cause and effect. It's not the fact that there are so many people who have been antagonized, made angry, irritated, marginalized, bullied, rejected. The number is so high that you cannot neglect it, and you cannot decline any responsibility for that. You, not as a person, but you as a chief of the important European institution. So I would say that we have to somehow roll back this process. When you mentioned that you wanted to have qualified majority votes in more areas of policy, public life in Europe, I mean, you are in for more trouble, because that will petrify this system in which some actors are equal and some are more equal than others, in which the decision-making process is extremely obscure. Nobody knows who makes the decision. And the division between North and South, East and West, it's still there. So if you want to have more trouble, go along this path. And this will be an extremely interesting situation after the election. I mean, to what extent you will be responsive to the signals. You are a charming man, President Juncker, and I love listening to you. But when you were talking today, I thought, my God, we are living in two different worlds. I wonder which one is the true one.
Per il gruppo dell'Alleanza dei Democratici e dei Liberali, la parola all'onorevole Verhofstadt.
Yeah, I first want to react to Mr. Legutko. It's terrifying what he is saying. He's saying here that we were never so disunited as today, as he has forgotten what Europe was between the two world wars, as he has forgotten